So you're thinking about starting 40K. So the next part here is we got to pick a faction. We have to figure out what index we're going to buy or what codex we're going to buy. And this plays into what we're going to want to paint and what we're going to want to build and what really kind of like speaks to us. So we've come up with a series of tips in order to pick that said faction. First of all, honestly, what looks cool? You know, what really, you know, you look at the models, you go, man, that looks really awesome. Like I can really get into that. You know, and what just sort of either the paint jobs or the way the model looks, or maybe the way the model feels, and maybe it represents something that you want to do. But there's another component to this, and that's going to be what plays well. I mean, the one thing you don't want to do is get into an army that you're going to be consistently losing, and then you just sort of lose that drive. And some of that goes into the army that you're playing. Unfortunately, this is kind of a game that's based on the list that you build. And I think that there's a little bit of wiggle room for you to kind of pick a faction that you're going to at least be able to stand a tolerable chance for you to enjoy this game. What you're going to have to do is through either the indexes or the codexes, you're going to actually have to build a list. And what that list building is basically, you're going to go through and try to figure out point values for each unit and just sort of get that all together, and plus the weapons that they have. But the point is that you will be trying to reach a goal as far as either power level or point value inside these books. So there is a limit to what you can play. So, you know, with that being said, is that what I want to do is I want to try to set people up with, when they first start this game, is that they're not going to kind of lose their interest because they're going to just get completely floored on turn one and, you know, at least stand a little bit of a chance. And then after that, get to experience what those units do, and then after that, kind of experiment with how they might want to move with their army strategically, or the way that they're going to list their army. But I think that the best way to go about it is making sure that you're picking an army that you can actually paint and get on the field. And I have a short list of armies that I would definitely suggest. All three of them, and what you're going to want to try to get into dry brushing and using metallics. So there are plenty of armies out there. You know, one would be maybe orcs, one would be Tau, anything where you have to do a combination of armor and layering on clothing and then doing faces might be at a different level, where I think that your focus for your first army is to get a couple of paints on there, do a little bit of dry brushing, experiment with what that feels like, and getting a feel for your first army, and then moving on after that. The truth is that you're probably going to be doing your first army, and you're going to move on, and you're going to do the next one, maybe the next one, or in my case, way too many. I think you want to start off with something that's going to be tolerable to paint, easy to paint, something that you can get into, and it looks pretty good. You know, it looks good for your first scheme. And there's going to be some armies that you might want to avoid, but I definitely would suggest 3 armies to start out with. At the top of the list is going to be Space Marines. And I say that not only because of the paint that you can apply, like the ease of the model and even gluing, but also because of the way that they play on the table. They're pretty resilient. And I think that I look at Space Marines as sort of like the starter class in an RPG. Like sometimes you just want to pick the warrior, or you just want to pick the knight, just because you know that you want to get a feel for the game before you move on to something that's a little bit more complicated. And the same thing applies to Warhammer 40K. So I would say that if you go with Space Marines, you could do a nice silver, a nice gold, or just sort of a nice dry brushing of a color, and then just a little bit of detail here and there, and you're good to go. But the point is that these guys aren't going to fly off the table immediately off of turn 1. Next, I'm going to suggest probably Necrons. They're basically like Terminators, like in the movies, the T-1000s that are just walking around. So you're basically going to be sticking with maybe 3 different colors. You're going to be silver, bronze, gold, and you're going to dry brush that on, and it's going to get you used to dry brushing. It's a quintessential technique that you need to learn early on when you're starting to paint minis. So I think Necrons is great. They're also as resilient as Space Marines. They pack a pretty good punch as far as the weapons that they can choose in their loadouts. The last is going to be Chaos. Chaos is kind of I put that last on the list because that can be a starter army if you're really into, like, I want to be the evil side, I want to be anti-Space Marines, and you're going to want to go Chaos. They're the bane of existence of everything Imperial, all the good guys. So like these are the evil people. As much as they can be a starter army, as much as they can be a more advanced army. And I say that in terms of painting, and I say that in terms of playing as well. So I mean, they're basically Space Marines. Depending if you go on with the like the normal models, the basic Chaos Space Marine models, then you're pretty much playing Space Marines, but they just look evil. Painting wise, you know, they can get a little bit more advanced because you got tentacles, you got spikes, you got skulls, you got a couple other things that you're gonna have to paint detail in, and you can't really avoid kind of skipping steps. Please like and subscribe and pass this along to people that you think are just getting started in this hobby. So thanks everybody, and look forward to the next video.